Hello.
Hello.
My name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks.
And my name is James Maynard, otherwise known as Sweet Baby James. I'm handling the chat tonight. Please chat with us. I'll share it with Beth, and she can talk directly to you.
That's right, if you are here live. Otherwise, just put your comment in the comments also, but know that I will answer you later, right? Because I can't answer you live if you're not here.
Yeah.
So there it is. Well, tonight I have a very pertinent topic. I'm calling the show The Trans Revolution. And I don't mean transcendental. Why are so many people, non trans people, freaking out about this? So I want to talk about that. Now, what I want to make clear is that I am not here to talk about why people become trans. I'm talking about why so many non trans people are freaking out, which we can see right, left, and center. There's legislation against trans and trying to stop it, and, like, why? Well, let's try to talk about what's going on for us. How about that?
Yeah.
Instead of talking about what's going on for them.
Right.
So, for full disclosure, I am not trans.
Nor I.
But I can't say that I couldn't understand why somebody would. So, join us tonight because this is a hot topic. Now, some of you might not like what I have to say tonight, but then that's par for the course. You don't always like what I have to say, but I have to say it anyway because it's really upsetting me. So, anyway, let's talk very briefly about some of the excuses people have about why they're freaking out about trans people. Okay. God made men and women, and that's it. There's the religious argument. Well, the fact of the matter is, God made a lot of different things, right? God made homosexuals, and we have a comment.
And Lizzie says hello and sends a couple of hearts of love.
Hi there, Lizzie. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Lizzie.
and love back to you. So we all know that in the natural world, meaning non-human, there's homosexuality. So it's not like it's all that simple. And some people are born with competing and different sexual characteristics and so on. So this thing about, oh, it's so simple, well, nothing is ever that simple. Anyway, but I want to get past that. I just want to address that for a little bit. I also want to say that for many people, it's just strange. When I was growing up, I didn't know there were trans people. I don't even know if there were, because I'm 78, But there were certainly cross-dressers, which is not the same as trans, but there were drag shows, and there were guys in drag, and lots of women like to wear men's clothes and so on. So that we're already seeing, like, okay, so we didn't even know there were trans people, but we certainly saw that there was a lot of blurring of the lines, right? And we have another person.
Oh, and Catalina says good evening and sends a heart of love and musical notes.
Thank you. Thank you,
Catalina.
So some of it is just lack of familiarity. I remember when I started seeing men kissing. It's like, oh my God, that is strange looking. Now I don't even look twice when there are men kissing because
Or women kissing.
or women kissing. Of course, women kiss a lot, but anyway, because it's become familiar. So that sort of settled things down a little bit from the freak out. So why is there still so much freaking out? Well, I'm going to tell you what I think.
Yeah. Please tell us what you think.
Well, when we start looking at it, why would a man ever want to become a woman? And why would a woman ever want to become a man? It's just takes the whole conversation about who you are. How dare you change? How dare you question the way things are? And I was just laughing because, people dye their hair purple, and there isn't a movement against people dyeing their hair purple. So people do change themselves, even physically. But I really want to get to why people, my perception, I'm not speaking about trans people. I'm not an expert on trans people. I would have to have somebody here who was trans, and then I would have to do a lot of interviewing, finding lots of people why they did it. But let me tell you why I wanted to be a man.
Oh, yeah, do tell.
I was born in 1945, just ushering in women going back into the home, becoming homemakers again after World War II. And it looks like we have another Nashat in Lebanon. He's Syrian.
Nashat says, "Good morning, beautiful Beth and James."
Hi
Thank
there.
you.
Hi there.
And he also sends hearts of love and a cute little puppy dog.
Okay, we'll take both, the puppy and the love. Okay. So, when I was growing up, I did not want to be a woman. I didn't know about being trans. I just knew that I didn't want to be a woman. And we have another.
And Tracy says, "Hi from Tracy and Jane."
Oh, great. Great. Would love both of you. How nice.
Thank you for coming.
Indeed. So why didn't I want to be a woman? Well, it's obvious. Being a woman sucked as far as I was
The
concerned.
men had the power.
The men had the first of all, because I was a girl, I was expected to be interested in babies and cleaning and cooking and sewing and all of. I wasn't interested in babies. I wasn't interested in cleaning. I wasn't interested. I don't know, too many women are who are. I didn't want that life. I wasn't interested in that life. I wanted to be an intellectual. I wanted to be a revolutionary, a doer. I didn't want to be standing
And
behind.
a musician.
And a musician. I didn't want to be standing behind my man or under my man or any of the. And I'm tired of men competing with me just because I was a woman or a girl. Like they felt that they had to prove that they were smarter or more accomplished or more something, right? Because that was my role, my gender role. So when I said I didn't want to be a woman, I mean it. I didn't shave. So many women shave their legs and their armpits and their pubic hair, and I didn't even know that people shaved their pubic hair until recently. But anyway, I wasn't going to do that. I didn't want to wear makeup, and I didn't want to have a nose job, which I was offered, and I didn't want any. I didn't want to sew. So I had a different life for myself, and when I was entering, 13 years old, I wanted to dress up like a boy. Now, I was not a tomboy. No. I was actually very sick, disabled, chronically ill, weak young girl. But I didn't want to be in that social role. And I hated that, So I can totally understand. Now, I'm not saying this is why trans people transition. I'm just saying that from my perspective, it doesn't seem odd. So I don't have a freak out about women wanting to be men. Do you understand? You understand the distinction I'm making? I'm not talking about why trans people transition. I'm talking about why it seems perfectly normal to me that women would. And who wants a period? And who wants menopause? And who wants fibroids? And God, we have another comment.
Nashat says, my day is going to be beautiful and wonderful to see you both, my lovely friends.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natash. Wonderful comment.
You know, people want to change things that they don't want. Unfortunately, for a lot of black people who were discriminated against, some of them wanted to be white. I don't blame them for wanting to pass for white. Who would want to be discriminated against, right? So when I was Jewish in those days, and it's coming back, there was a lot of discrimination against Jews. And professors changed their names and pretended that they weren't Jewish, if they could get away with it. So I can understand them not wanting to be identified as Jewish, right? It's the same kind of thing. Or maybe you don't want to be English, you really want to be Italian because you like the big Italian families. You know what I mean? It's like there's something that appeals to you about this other way of being in the world. And so that seems perfectly reasonable to me. Now, what about the other way around? From my perspective, why would any man want to be a woman? Well, maybe they like to dress up. All the things that I despised. I didn't want to dress up. I didn't want to wear makeup. But maybe they liked that. They felt drawn to that. Maybe it felt like their self-expression to wear women's clothes, if they did that. Or maybe they didn't want to live as men in a society that treats men like they have no feelings. Maybe they didn't want to go to war. Maybe they didn't want to have to fight all the time to prove that they were real men. I mean, honest to God, I cannot tell you how many men I've worked, because I'm an intuitively guided counselor, and a very good counselor at that. How many men I've worked with who didn't like the male role. They weren't allowed to feel anything. They weren't allowed to be soft. They weren't allowed to be loving. They weren't allowed to be sensitive. They didn't like that. Or they didn't like physical altercations. They weren't built like that. They didn't, or they didn't want to have to play that game, or they didn't want to be responsible for the finances of the entire family, which at that time was put on men. Right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
can think of lots of reasons other than you're born with that desire, which I'm not saying people aren't. I'm just talking about how I see it, right? I can see lots of reasons that men wouldn't want to be men as it is defined in our sick world. Now, everything about sexuality is kind of screwed up in our world. People freak out. They either make it into a joke or they use it to get somewhere. I'll tell you the times I liked being a woman was when I was hungry and I needed some guy to take me out for dinner. And at that time, that's the way it was. Men took women out to dinner, and then I would eat half, take the rest home, and I'd have a meal for 2 days. So I like that. I have to admit that I took advantage of that gender stereotype, but I didn't like to be chased around the table. I didn't like being raped, which happens more often to women than men, and happened to me more often than I would like. And I'll tell you another reason I didn't like being a woman, because I happen to be a physically fragile woman, and just about anybody could just push me over. And I didn't like that. Inside me, I wasn't, that way. I was strong. I wanted to be seen as tough, but physically I wasn't. So I could be dominated easily. Some big guy comes along and he just assumes that I'm weak or weaker than he is. And he's, in my case, is right. Now, it doesn't mean that all women are physically weak. Of course, that's not the point, and that is not the case. But I'm talking about the assumptions that go along with gender. So I love the fact that people are giving themselves a chance to choose who they want to be. And I hope that they make a decision that really works for them. I think that instead of freaking out or condemning or making a big issue about a bathroom, I mean, really, there's a lot bigger issues on the planet than who's peeing in the stall next to you. But I would like to see that we would focus on helping people make decisions that are going to work for them for the rest of their lives. That's what I want to see. I want to see kids realizing that they have choices and being supported to do what is right for them when they are ready to make those kinds of decisions, right? And never shame a child or an adult or anyone for wanting to be themselves. See, what I'm telling you is from my perspective. It wasn't that I wanted to be myself. Is that I didn't want to be who the society was making me be. So I wasn't really choosing to be myself, because as far as I was concerned, what I really wanted to be was gender neutral. I don't mean non-binary. I don't mean that I wanted to sleep with women. I happened, in those days when I was physically well and I could have sex, I was attracted to men. But I was also somewhat attracted to women. If women were attractive, then I might feel that too. But it's like, oh no, you can't even think about that. I mean, there was so much rigidity, but it's so much deeper than that, you see. It's about me wanting to be me, just me, and not defined by the world and the society. So, James?
Yeah. Well, you know, I grew up in that whole rigid structure of what it is to be male. And I didn't start loosening that up until the 70s when the feminine movement arose.
The feminist movement?
The feminist movement. And I was able to embrace more and more of my own feminine qualities, sensitivity, gentleness.
Isn't that disgusting that
yeah.
you had to call those feminine qualities?
Right.
Like gentle, the Dalai Lama must be a trans, right? You know, why did we even associate those qualities with a particular gender?
Well,
right.
With the male conditioning here in the United States, the biggest emphasis is on competing for the win. And so gentleness doesn't enter into the picture.
No, it's dangerous.
Sensitivity is seen as weakness.
That's right.
So it takes some effort to get away from that way of thinking.
That's right. Honestly, I don't know why women would ever want to be in the army, but
yeah.
But some people do. That's in them. That they have that in them, or they feel that they need to prove themselves. Mm-hmm. See, how much are we really who we are? Or how much are we either being what the society tells us we should be based on our gender, and how much are we rebelling against what the society wants us to be? You know, in either of those cases, we're not being ourselves. How many of us really have that option? Maybe some women, I still don't understand. You know, I've brought this up a million times, why women wear high heels and think that's feminine. You know, when I saw drag queens, my first thought was, why would they ever want to wear those clothes? Those shoes, wear that makeup. But God bless them. If they want to, more power to them. I don't want to wear them.
I had a brother who was gay and who loved being a drag queen.
That's right.
And I didn't really learn that until after he passed away. But because his friends say that's one of his favorite things to do. So why not?
Why
You know,
not?
have a good
I
time.
mean, why do we, who the hell are we to tell someone else who to be? I have enough trouble trying to figure out who I am. That's honestly how I feel. Now, James, I want to ask you something.
Okay. And by the way, we have Blanquita saying hello, Beth and James. And she sends
Hola.
2 hearts of love. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Hola,
And
Blanquita.
then a big heart of love, too. So, what was it you wanted to ask me?
I wanted to ask you, are you more freaked out by women transitioning to being men or by men transitioning to being women? I didn't ask him this question before, so this
I
is,
think it's about equal.
is it?
I think so.
I
On
don't
the-
think so.
Mm.
I don't think so.
Hmm. It's probably a man trying to be a woman.
Yes, exactly.
That threatens my very identity.
Well, you can understand why women would want to be men, can't you?
Oh, yeah. Men have a lot of advantages.
A lot of advantages, right? But why would a man want to be a woman?
Well,
Losing all that power.
if a man already has a lot of feminine qualities, it's be a natural.
I understand that. I'm not saying that. What I'm talking about is you. It's like I had a feeling when I asked you that question
Okay.
that you found it harder to imagine a man transitioning to being a woman and have more of a reaction to that than women transitioning to men. A lot of women wear dungarees, it's just normal. Women wear jeans and sweatshirts and stuff like that. That's like, you don't even think about it. They're in the street. And thank God there are enough women. We live in Oregon. There are women who don't dye their hair, like I don't, and or don't wear makeup, who have the more natural look. And they wear, clothes that are associated with. But don't you look twice if you see a man wearing a skirt.
Oh, yeah.
It seems much more.
Even when I lived in Scotland and I saw men wearing skirts, I says, that looks weird.
So I think that it's hard. I suspected as much that it's like, why would anybody, in the Hebrew prayer book, when I grew up Jewish, and we were in what we called a conservative family. I don't mean politically. It means that it was in the conservative branch of Judaism that was pretty traditional, but not super orthodox, right? And they used to say this prayer every time I went to the synagogue, which said, "Thank God you didn't make me a woman."
Mm.
And my grandmother, who grew up in the Ukraine, basically, where a lot of Jewish immigrants came from, there were 13 children, and every single one of them died in early in childbirth or right after. She was the only survivor, and her father was a Hebrew school teacher. She was the only surviving child, and she learned how to read Hebrew. She learned how to pray. She did the same thing the men did, except that she couldn't do it in that public way, right? But she did it at home. But she never wore men's clothes or did anything like that. But she didn't, I would bet you anything that she did not. And she was a good cook, but she did all the right things, and she had the 3 children and everything. But she rebelled in the religion, as has happened. Since then, women have become rabbis. Women have become cantors, right?
Well, getting back to a man becoming transgender into woman, maybe I feel a sense of questioning about the male identity that I have. It's like, whoa. So this is up for question.
Exactly. I think you've said a very important thing there, James.
Mm.
So having people questioning their own gender identity causes us to really reflect upon who we are
Mhm.
and why we are the way we are. And I would like to put out to everyone to stop judging, stop freaking out, look within, and see why you might be having a reaction,
Mhm.
and how we can be more supportive to people who feel the call to switch their genders, and or who have the call to be anything, to break through all the stereotypes. So that's what I have to say for tonight.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you that tomorrow night we do magical improvs. I play the piano, James sings, and that's every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific
Pacific.
time. And lighting the way, Granny Raps and Rocks is every Wednesday night at 6:30. And I invite each and every one of you to think about what I've talked about tonight and to think about your own identity. How much are you trapped by who you were born to be as other people defined it? And what would you like to do? It doesn't necessarily mean you need to become gay or bi or transgender or anything. Who would you like to be? Who are you on the inside? Take a risk on being yourself. That's my message for tonight.
There we are.
So come back. Please like this show, love the show, and please share this program with others. There's too many people in our world today who are being cruel, bigoted towards all kinds of people. I mean, there's way more. I read something tonight, and I'm going to leave you with that. That was very funny. I would rather pee next to a guy than a bigot from a woman. I'd rather pee next to a transgender than a bigot. Okay.
Oh, and Todd says, take a risk on being yourself. I love that. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Love you.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd, for taking us out on that wonderful note.
Mm-hmm.
We love you. Open the mind. Light
Yeah.
the way. Let's support one another.
Yes.
Yes.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming.